You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 409. Your dream doesn't have an expiration date. Take a deep breath and try again. KT Witten.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, how to turn your independent film into a profitable business. It's harder today than ever before for independent filmmakers to make money with their films. From predatory film distributors ripping them off to huckster film aggregators who prey upon them, the odds are stacked against the indie filmmaker. The old distribution model of making money with your film is broken, and there needs to be a change. The future of independent filmmaking is the entrepreneurial filmmaker or the filmtrepreneur. In Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, I break down how to actually make money with your film projects and show you how to turn your indie film into a profitable business. With case studies examining successes and failures, this book shows you the step-by-step method to turn your passion into a profitable career. If you're making a feature film, series, or any other kind of video content, the Filmtrepreneur method will set you up for success. The book is available in paperback, ebook, and of course, audiobook. If you want to order it, just head over to www.filmbizbook.com. That's filmbizbook.com. Now, guys, today on the show, we have filmmaker Anderson Cowan, and he is the filmmaker behind the new film Groupers. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Anderson over a year or so ago. We met through a mutual friend, and he had just finished his movie at the time. And he was looking for some advice on distribution and how to get the movie out there and what I thought. And he had been listening to my podcast, so I agreed because we had a good mutual friend to have lunch with him. And as you'll find out in the interview, he was pretty much a deer in headlights. He didn't know the first thing about distribution, about getting your movie out there, about how to make money with your film. It was interesting. And he has gone through a lot of misadventures getting his film up onto the screen and getting money back from his film. So I wanted to bring him on the show so we can discuss a lot of the mistakes he made along the way, and hopefully you guys can learn from them as well. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Anderson Cowan. I'd like to welcome to the show Anderson Cowan, man. How are you doing, brother?
I am doing fantastic, Alex. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show, brother. I've been on your show. I've been a guest on your radio show, or podcast. A little while ago when I had my first book out, and I had a ball. That was back when we could actually sit next to each other, without the fear of something happening.
I'm kind of an isolationist, so I don't really mind any of this. This is nice to be able to just, see people two-dimensional. I don't like the 3D movies. I don't like 3D people. This works for me.
So, man, we're here I wanted you on the show because you made a movie called Groupers. And there's a lot. I mean, when we first met through a mutual friend of ours, you were talking about this movie, and you were talking about what you wanted to do with it, and you wanted some advice, and you were kind of just getting your feet wet. And this is like, what, a year and a half ago now?
Yes. It might have been 2 years ago, Alex. And I still think about that lunch that we had. It was my friend, your friend, and I, right? And I didn't realize that I was a deer in the headlights at the time, but I was an absolute deer in the headlights. And I can only imagine what you were looking at when you were sitting across the table from me. Because I had made the movie, I was done, but I didn't know what a film market was. You're going, well, first thing you want to do is looking at AFM. I'm like, okay, AFM. You're like, it's the American film market, and I'm like, what, like a fish market? It's like they sell movies there. You're like, yes, that's how it works, Anderson. And I look back on that, and the stuff that I have learned since that moment is just unbelievable. And I'm embarrassed of that version of myself. I'm embarrassed of many versions of myself, but that one in particular, man. And there's so many people like that, Alex, who make a movie, but they have no idea.
Most. No idea. I'm going to say most first-time filmmakers have absolutely no idea what to do with the film when they're done with it.
And you know what, that leads me to this, which is, it's no surprise at all that there are as many sharks as there are out there. You know, predatory distributors and aggregators, and it makes perfect sense because there's so many douchebags like me who are like, I mean, for the first 20 years of my movie making career, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to find the guy that's going to help me, or find the woman that's going to help me, get it out there. And I'm the artist, and I just want to do my own thing. And I don't want to be corrupted by the business side of things. And I actively avoided it like a total douche. And of course, there's going to be a whole litany of predators just waiting to take advantage of people like me. So thank God I found your show and started really reading up before I went out there in the murky waters.
Oh no! I remember when I was coming up, I always had some sort of business sense, but I just said, man, when I was at my full douchiness, which there was like a level of high douche early on in my career, where I was so far up my own butt that it wasn't even funny. I would say, like, I need my Brian Grazer, I need my Lawrence Bender, because
and they'll find me.
And by the way, I was Ron Howard and Quentin Tarantino in those scenarios in my mind. So let's just clarify that right then and there. But good.
I was talking about this the other day. Like, Stanley Kubrick didn't get discovered. Like, he went out there and pushed himself to become, like, you don't get discovered. But I think that a lot of us start that way. Like, I spent 20 years of my life, maybe 30 years of my life, never saying movie. Everything was a film. Oh, it's a fine film. You know what I mean? And I just look back and it's like, dude, it's not a good look. It's not a good vibe. And I think that you got to have some level of arrogance, though, to think that you have a voice enough to want to make a movie. So it's good that you tame that when you're younger, and then learn your limitability, your limits, and then move from there. But yeah, I've learned so much about business since.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just explain. I've said this, I think, on the show before, but to explain to you the level of douchiness that I was at when I was in film school and coming out of film school. My first production company was called, prepare yourself, wait for it, Tour Pictures.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
It was called the Tour Pictures. The logo, which I had made, which was on marble, not kidding you, with a 1996 3D movement camera, where the shadow of the letters that spelled out a tour would just shift. That was like big stuff back then, when you can move a 3D light.
Oh, that
around.
Is pretty cool. Still, I mean, I'd be impressed by that. Yeah.
But it was a Tour Pictures.
Thank God, though, it didn't happen the way that we had, fantasized it to happen in our own minds. Because I hate to think that of what a horrible douche I would have become. You know what I mean? Or would have continued to be if it actually did all come true. You know, and a lot of it. It comes from insecurities, right? It comes from knowing that you're a tiny, tiny little fish, and you got to have this chip on your shoulder and this bravado and believe in yourself because no one else is believing in you. So I understand where it comes from, but looking back at it, it's just like, Right.
No, without question. I mean, if like the book I was, my first book, Shooting for the Mob, which I was on your show about, if that would have happened, if I would have made the $10 or $15 million movie, if I would have worked with those stars, if I would have gone down that road, I promise you I would have self-destructed. Afterward, I wouldn't. My ego would have not been able to handle that kind of attention, that kind of fame, that kind of anything. I would have been.
My body wouldn't have been able to take it. I would die. I think I would die from drug overdose. I would just be out there every single night. And I'd be a total flash in the pan. I'd make one thing, and then I would just burn out from drugs and probably die. I'm not kidding. So I don't understand when I see these like really young kids get early success. It's like, good on you for being able to handle that. Because I know that me in my early 20s was a nightmare.
Yeah, no question at all.
Plus, you don't really have a whole lot to say when you're in your early 20s, right? Like, you haven't really lived life enough to be telling large audiences, like, parts of the world and parts of like stories and human interest stories. And I don't get it. I don't get a lot of it, Alex. I'm still learning. We all are.
We all are, man. We all are. Now, you jumped into filmmaking later in life. So can you give any advice to people out there that might be listening who are scared to take the jump?
Yeah, well, I hate to feel like it was later in life. I mean, I've been making movies for 20 years, but I didn't really take a swing and actually put myself up for rejection until later in life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
I got stuck in the radio world, and that really slowed me down. I worked on Loveline with Adam Carolla, Dr. Drew, for almost 20 years, and that stalled me, man. I remember Dr. Drew on a regular basis going, "Dude, when are you going to make your movie?" I'm like, "I know, but it costs a lot of money, Drew. Then how you don't just make a movie out of the blue." But the dream never died. I never lost interest in movies. I've got a bit of I'm very obsessive about things, and I've been in love with movies and the idea of movies and studying movies and watching tons of movies my entire life, and I just kept the dream alive, and I just kept pushing and pushing, and I've been doing 2 or 3 different movie shows weekly for the last number of years now. And I used one of those shows to raise money to make my first feature. I've been writing all along. I got like a number of scripts, but they all cost $1 million plus. So I finally wrote something that was cheap enough that I'd be able to raise the money through my audience, which I did in making Groupers, which is pretty much just takes place at the bottom of an empty pool for the first half of the movie, which it's a pretty cheap way to make a movie. If you just if you can find the empty pool,
Exactly. Now, what made you make the jump? Like, what was that thing? Because I know a lot of guys out there, a lot of girls out there just sitting there going, I just don't like, for me, it took me till I was 40 to finally wake up after another deal went down for me to just say, screw it, I'm going to go make my first film. And I did. 30 days later, I was shooting my movie. So that's what took for me. What was it, that thing that you're like, I got it.
What was my bottom?
Your catalyst.
It's kind of a catalyst or my bottom. Every single morning I would wake up, and the very first thing that I would hear in my head is, you're a loser. You've never made a movie. When are you going to make your first movie? I had made shorts, but I never made an actual. And I got together. I had a really good idea that I wanted to do, make a short out of. It was about a guy who liked his personal space. It's actually pretty apt for what's going on right now. He was this guy that really liked his personal space, and he hated it when people came into his like little social distancing bubble, and he would put on a disguise to make him look like a pedophile to keep people away from him. And I said, I want to shoot this. So I got together with my buddy from film school. And as far as film school goes, the best thing that you can get out of film school are contacts that you can, get together with 10, 15, 20 years later. Because when you get out of film school, they're not worth anything as contacts. They can be friends, but they're not going to be able to help you. One of my best friend from film school, he's got a lot of connections, and he had a great relationship over at Panavision. So I said, let's get a package from Panavision and shoot a short. And then I looked into the production insurance, which I knew nothing about, right? And Panavision was like, yeah, we'll give you this $500,000 package of equipment for free for the weekend, but you need to have insurance. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Turns out that the insurance for 2 weeks cost almost as much as for the full year. So we got the insurance for the full year. We paid like $3,500 or whatever it was, and we just shot shorts all year long. And that was really the catalyst to get my feet wet again after 5 years after film school and start figuring this out again. And every single day it was like a mantra. And I didn't ask for it, Alex. I didn't want to hear the voice in my head calling me a loser every morning, but that's what I heard. And then once I made the movie, or once it was like in the works, the next mantra was, you don't have a kid. You're never going to be a dad. What a loser. So it's like, there's always something.
You need to talk to that voice, man. We all got that voice. Some of them are a little bit more aggressive than others, but yeah, I have that voice too. And, right now it's not easy. You can't hit the gym. So now you've got to like self-motivate. No. You got to self-motivate to actually, get out there, work out, stay set, not carb up. Not eat every snack that you have gotten. It's tough right now. It's really tough in that sense. But we're in better shape than many people out there. Without question.
It's the best time to be in this situation with which is self quarantining and the stay-at-home orders. Like never in the history of humanity has there been a better time to have to do this with all the delivery services and the streaming services and everything else.
Absolutely. So, now you raised money through your audience, and you used a pitch video. Can you tell me how you raised the money and how you kind of packaged this to your audience? Because the audience was basically fans of you and what you did, not specifically the film. It was about you.
Yeah, they knew my sensibilities. They knew my taste in movies, and a lot of them just appreciated all of the recommendations I'd given them over the years on the Film Vault. In particular, every single week we talk about the 3 most recent movies we've seen, and then we do a top 5 list of like last week we did top 5 supermarket scenes because we're all spending one of the only places we're allowed to go right now, supermarkets. So we kind of tailor it to what's going on, and a lot of people just wanted to see me, take a swing and make my dream a reality, to actually make a feature film. And that's where a lot of the money comes from. Is you don't realize that a lot of people who aren't necessarily doing what they want to do, 9 to 5, appreciate a peer or somebody else still trying to make the dream happen, and they will, help you out to make that go. First thing I did was I got a producer. And I've been sniffing around for years for somebody who might be able to be in this position, and somebody, Max Landworth was my producer. And then once you get somebody who's very business minded, you're going to hopefully take the next steps. And the next steps is raising the money. He had a bunch of different suggestions, one of which was to get a crowdfunding coach. This guy named Justin Giddings was great because he helped me with the Facebook, because I'm terrible at Facebook. I'm not a Facebook guy. He helped me with the Twitter. And
I like the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram. Yeah, it's nice.
The Twitter machine. Yeah, thankfully I get to wax poetic, via podcast or what used to be radio shows. I get the word out with those. So I don't really see the value in social media, because I don't want to say something on social media that I'm going to just repeat myself again on one of the shows. So I'm terrible with it all. And every time I get on there, Alex, I see somebody saying something that infuriates me, and I'm terrible social media. So it was great having this Justin guy to kind of walk me through it, and he had a bunch of great ideas. But really, it was my audience. I had a built-in audience that helped propel me to get the 80. I was looking for $75,000, and we ended up getting $85,000. I don't really know how you go about it if you don't have a built-in audience, especially nowadays where everyone's got a crowdfunding thing going. The crowdfunding racket has been pretty run dry, I would say.
Yeah, the audience, building your own audience is definitely something that needs to be happening, regardless, whatever your endeavors are in your filmmaking career. Having that audience is super, super valuable in every way possible. Now, when you wrote the script, though, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that you can do, and you talk about this all the time, is, look for your niche and you look for your lane. And if you're good at it and you know what you're talking about, that's a great approach. Mm-hmm. Or in my case, I went for a hook, like a really easy to explain hook, something that was obnoxious, that was kind of, going to stir the pot. And I was able to get people on board pretty easily. And that was the Chinese finger traps. I mean, the whole premise of my movie was those guys out there that claim homosexuality is a choice. Mm-hmm. Well, those were my targets. The movie's about these two homophobic jocks who get kidnapped, and they are set out to they must prove that homosexuality is a choice by being gay for each other. And there's a Chinese finger trap that connects the two of them. So it's incredibly sophomoric and childish on that level, but then the movie goes much, much deeper and much farther as well. But it's a comedy. I was trying to make an important comedy, and that's tough to do. It's really tough to do. But I pretty much made the movie that I wanted to make, which is, and there's no way I would have without all those shorts that I made that one year when we got the production insurance. So that helped a lot, getting your feet wet.
So you mean you actually practiced your craft before you actually went out and did something big? No, stop it.
It is one of the toughest crafts to practice. Like it's not like playing catch,
or the guitar.
The batting.
It's not playing guitar.
Or the guitar, right? You don't get to watch YouTube videos showing you how to direct, even though they'll have you believe that. Ron Howard will have you give him a bunch of money for his masterclass, and maybe you'll learn some of the stuff that we learned in film school, but a lot of that will also just have you direct like everybody else, right? So it's to find your voice, to find your style, to figure out what, if you're even good at it or not, costs so much money, takes so much time, and takes so many people's energy, not only just you, but you have to have all your friends and volunteers work on these things. It's crazy how hard it is to practice this craft.
Now, when you were writing the script, I'm assuming you had budget in mind, before you wrote the script?
Well, No, that's another problem that I had, and I got to tell you, I'm writing right now, and I do have that in mind, and I do have marketing in mind as I'm writing it, but I'm not selling out. I'm making sure that I'm not selling out, but I am thinking about all those things, which is so valuable.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
I would just write because I was a purist, Alex. I wasn't gonna, write for business. I don't care if and no one shows up. I'm making this movie for me, man.
It's art. It's art.
And every script I had written, like the first 4 scripts I had written, they probably, $1 to $5 million range. I'm not thinking about that because I don't care. It's art. Yeah. This one I was 30 pages in writing it for myself. When it dawned on me, I'm like, holy, I won't cuss, but I'm like, my God, this is a cheap script. I've never written anything this cheap. And that's when I realized, you know what? This is the first movie I'm going to actually be able to make. And I was excited. But that's also when the wheels started turning to the point where every word became precious, because it was the first movie I wasn't writing just for myself. I knew that this was actually going to be on the big screen, and that made me overthink everything for sure. So it took me a while to write it after I realized that. But no, I wasn't thinking budget until I was on about page 30 when I realized cheap. It is cheap. But I highly recommend that people just, when you're daydreaming up ideas, try and think cheap and small.
Yeah, because I mean, the chances of you, if you want to be a filmmaker and you're trying to get a movie packaged and sent out and try to raise financing and stuff, it is doable. But man, you've got to have all cylinders hitting at full throttle, and you really got to know what you're doing, and you really got. It's kind of like you're gonna thread that needle. You've got to have a lot of skilled people around you as well as yourself to hit that target. And a lot of filmmakers don't. It's just like clumsily, like, I just picked up the bat. I've watched baseball forever, but I just picked up the bat for the first time. I'm walking up to face a major league pitcher. I'm sure it's going to be fine because I've seen it 1,000 times. That's what you don't want to do. And I think writing a script that you can actually manage yourself and shoot for 50 grand or less, 100 grand or less, and do it all within your power is, I take that to the extreme with my first 2 films, $5 grand and $3 grand,
insane
to make those
You're
films.
An insane person. Has that been verified? Can we actually get some number crunchers to come in and verify?
Knock yourself
that?
out.
It just makes no sense.
Well, the reason why it makes no sense is because I've spent 25 years putting so many tools in my own toolbox that I carried a lot of the weight myself. Oh, if I would have to pay everybody my jobs that I did, forget it.
Right. You would have a lot of money. It'd be your own.
I would
have a lot of money.
Exactly. So, that's the only way you could do stuff like that.
Something that I learned from you early on was that, the cheaper, the better, twofold. One, it's going to be easier to raise the money or find the money if it's cheap, obviously. And 2, it's the game is recouping that money so you can make the next one. And you got to be able to prove that. And that's what I want to talk to you about next is the insanity that is, we'll just go with Amazon because they're the big player here. My movie Groupers became available TVOD in November of 2019. And my distributor and I have no idea how it's performing. We have no idea. Amazon does not have numbers for us until it's done until the end of the second quarter of the first full quarter of business, right? Which is crazy because of course they have the data. Why they don't share it with the filmmakers or the distributors or just even the aggregate with anybody is beyond me. I'm a affiliate member with Amazon with one of my shows. You click through a little banner and we get a percentage kicked back to the show. I can see what people are buying pretty much in real time, exactly what they bought, what they paid for it, what our percentages. They have the technology. Why they don't share this with filmmakers is beyond me. Do you have any ideas on this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. It's the reason why distributors in general and platforms in general take forever to pay because it's like a bank. They're holding the cash and they're kind of just paying it for
that.
And that's
fine.
all.
I mean, they can save the money.
Yeah, but
give it to me eventually. Like even with my affiliate program, it takes them 90 days to pay. That's okay. I'm not gonna. But let me see what ads are working. Let me see what media, social media posts are working, so that I can, double down on those.
There's a serious problem with all of this distribution in general. It's something that I have been racking my brain around, about since last year. if not earlier, but really kind of done a deep dive, ever since the distributor debacle and what happened with them. And I was just like, there has to be a better way. So I'm thinking and working on things myself, trying to figure out a better way of doing this. But it's lunacy. It's lunacy because the cost of the product is so expensive. It's not like a pen. It's not like a pen that cost me a few cents to make, and it's going to take me, 240 days to get my first payment for it. It's not even on a 60, 90, it's on 180 days. It's actually longer than that. So that's the thing. It's like the system is so flawed. It's so, not set up for us as the creators that's why I kind of just opted out of the whole system. And, when I made my first two films, I partnered with a distributor that, Indie Rights, who I've worked with. But they're just one revenue stream, where I have multiple revenue streams coming in from my movies through my platform and through other products and other services and things that I do. And that's why I opted out of it. And I think that is the only way moving forward is you have to create other revenue streams from your art in order to make it. I mean, look at the music industry right now. Before, the way they were making money was touring and live shows and appearances. So I can't even imagine what is going to happen to musicians moving forward. Because now their only way to make money is now going to be virtual live performances.
No, this'll end though. I mean, this isn't forever. This will
no,
end,
it is
with younger people.
No, of course it will end. But the point is that it's going to take a while, and even the hangover of what's going on right now is going to take at least till next year. So for this rest of this year, I don't see there's no Lollapalooza this year. There's no, I mean, regardless, if it's going to take time before we get back to normal. I'm not going to a movie theater this year. I don't care what they say, so, not this year.
I will. I'll be there.
I know you will.
You open up those movie theaters and I'm going to be there. Yeah. I it really concerns me and upsets me with all these people saying, hey, who needs theaters? It's great. Just pay $20, watch it at home. It's like, no, that's not what movies are. I mean, not to get douchey again and get, like back to auteur pictures again. But movies aren't special unless they're an event in a theater for a limited amount of time. You know what I mean?
But that's for our generation, though. That's for our generation, not for a whole other generation that's grown up.
So let me ask you this, Alex. Like, if they're not events that you can only go to and see them the way that they were made to be seen, which is in a theater, when these movies are being mixed together for their sound and the pictures being color time, they're doing that on big screens with Atmos
I know.
Speakers.
Yes.
They're not doing it for your iPod,
correct.
for your iPad, your face. So you go to see it the way that it was intended to be seen, and you can only see it that way for a limited amount of time, which makes it special. If that's not an option anymore, then do we really even need new movies? Maybe one a month, two a month, because we have 100 years worth of movies that most people have never seen that are going to get us through the day. You know what I mean? Me as a movie lover.
I'll tell you what. Look, it's a travesty to watch Star Wars on your iPhone, like that. Watching any Nolan film, any Kubrick film on a iPhone is a travesty. In my opinion,
absolutely.
There are things like I actually had the chance to see Full Metal Jacket in the theater with I'm going to douche out a little bit here, but I had Kubrick's right hand man, the guy who made the movie Filmmaker, like that documentary. Yeah, he was sitting right behind me, and I got to talk to him afterwards. And I watched Full Metal Jacket with him and Matthew Modine in the theater, and I was just like, this is awesome. And I'd never seen Full Metal Jacket in the theater. I'd only seen it on DVD and on VHS and all that stuff over the years. And it was just like, wow, this is insane. Like watching 2001 at home is awesome. But watching it in the theater, like I saw Lawrence of Arabia at a theater in 70 millimeter.
I saw it at Cinerama Dome. Yeah, so like
the
intermission and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I still didn't.
So the thing is, but that's an event. And for a generation like you and me who were raised on that makes sense. But there's a whole generation of filmmakers, filmmakers and film lovers who are watching Irishman, a Scorsese film on their iPhone.
And I get that. And I get the generational thing. And I don't want to come off like the old man, but it's about the relationship that you have with the movie and how it's fleeting. And you can only see it for that period of time in that theater. Like, you know, you can go and have your little intimate moment with that movie. And like, there'll be a movie that'll come out once every 5 years. And I'm like, I'm so into it. I'll see it 4 or 5 times in the theater. And
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
And it's excitement of knowing that, like, you know, it's only going to be around for another week in the theater. You better go see it one last time and have, you know, that intimate. Sure, you can watch it countless times in your house, but it's like kissing someone as opposed to actually, you know, having sex with them.
No, I get it. I get it completely. And I do personally believe that the theater experience will stay alive in one way, shape, or form. I don't, in the next 20 years, man, I don't see the theatrical experience maintaining what we knew it as. No. But it will always be there. The IMAX, you can't compete with IMAX. You can't compete with the theatrical experience. Yeah,
I need Alamo Drafthouse to get a IMAX because I do think that they're going to be one of those sole survivors when all this is said and done because they cater to films. They cater to people that, like, you know, you and I.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it will be in one way, shape, or form, but I don't think it will have. And look, this whole event that we're going through right now has really proven the fact that, you know, people are going to, after this blows over, people will want to go out. People will want to go back to the movies, but there's going to be a nice large percentage of people going to go, you know what? I'll just stay home unless it's a huge event, like, and you have to go see it in the theater.
Well, even before this, Alex, like, I'd go to my AMC theater down the street and there'd be 4 or 5 people there at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night, like young people. And I would wonder, like, I'd be happy to see people there, but I'd be like, how do they sell this to themselves that they think it's a good idea to go watch like an $18 movie once when they could, you know, have that pays for 2 months of Netflix with unlimited movies? Like, it's the model's broken and it needs to be fixed and changed and saved somehow. And I don't know the answer.
Yeah. And I think what's going on right now look, I've always said this about, we're going off tangent here, but I've always said that the theater in general, the whole industry has had a very combative relationship with the customer, with overpriced food, bad experience for a lot of those years. They've actually now upped their experience because they had to, not because they wanted to, because they had to compete. Like, you know, now you can sit in plush seats and everything is clean and the sound is impeccable and the screen is great and all of that stuff. That took years, decades for that to come up, and they had to do it because they're like, well, people don't need us anymore. But there's still this combative relationship with, like, look, it's like going into an airport and buying a soda. I'm like, do you not know what things cost outside? Like, I don't know. Like, so there's that whole, and then the price of the tickets and everything. So it's always been very combative. So now, like, AMC, who is about to go bankrupt any day now, is like, oh, we're not going to show any more Universal movies because they said something negative about us because Troll 2 made $100 million on streaming. And I'm like, if I was the theaters, I would do everything in my power to try to ingratiate myself to a studio like Universal, who's still releasing major tentpoles. Like, are you like, without this?
Alex, what's really funny is the biggest AMC in LA is actually
the Universal City Walk.
Well, how is that going to work?
It's so awkward.
But yeah, that whole exchange was so effing childish, and it's just it shows you that the people very top still don't know nothing. You know what I mean? The fact that they got so petty so quick, it's mind blowing.
It's basically the guy. It's basically it's the guys who had the horse and buggy guys who used to build buggies, and they're like, well, this upstart automobile is ridiculous, the car. Nobody wants that. It's unreliable. It's all this. And the same thing happened with kerosene lamps versus electricity. Like it is what it is. Streaming is here, regardless whether you like it or not. It's saving us right now. In this experience that we're going through right now without it. And I think so many more people are going to get so much more comfortable with streaming and having it as part of their life and getting great content. They're going to go, well, why? I don't need to go to the theater. Maybe once a year, maybe twice a year as a special event, but I'm not going monthly. That's what they'll say. Yeah. So, and by the way, the whole industry was already, you could just see it was dropping. It was dropping and dropping and dropping and the international ticket sales were the only thing that were really keeping it up, the theatrical. I mean, I remember a day when the U.S. market was 70 or 80% and international was 20. And now it's the opposite, as you can see with films that have Asian actors and Chinese themes for no apparent reason, because they need to sell it in China, which is a huge market now. So the world is upside down, and I don't, this happens in every industry. The old guard holds on as long as they can to the way things were, until they have no other choice. They're Blockbuster, basically. I think movie theaters right now are Blockbuster. I don't think they'll go away completely, but I think, by the way, by the end of this thing, we're going to lose somebody. We're going to lose a lot of screens.
There's some movie theaters for sure that have closed and will never open up again. I don't doubt that at all. And even before all this, Alex, my big theater down the street from me is AMC 16, and I love paying $23 a month to be able to see 3 new releases each week for $23 a month. It was very affordable for me, for somebody like me who watches movies all the time. But it's attached to a mall that has just been abandoned. It's kind of this crazy dead mall where like every single store is gone. It's actually where they shot Valley Girl that came out just recently. Anyways, they're making a new theater. AMC's moving across the street to a mall that's living, but they're going from 16 screens to 12 screens. So I mean, that's before all this. That's before the pandemic. So we are trending to less screens in this country, at least. Which it's inevitable. I get it.
Yeah, no, without question. Look, look. Remember the film and digital conversation? I mean, that whole thing. That took forever to finally figure out, to the point where now everyone was like, well, Red showed up and changed the game. And then Airy took them forever to finally catch up. And now they're like, well, we're not going to go after the main market. We're going to go after the professionals. And that's all we're going to do. Well, let Red, have the dentists buy their cameras and shoot their movies. Yeah. But that's what they're aiming at. So, but look, I remember when that came up and when people were still arguing film versus digital and all this stuff, and we could still have that argument about it now, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, people are going to shoot digitally. If they want to shoot film, go for it. I've shot film. I love film, but I
got it tattooed on my arm. I mean, I have 35 millimeter tattooed on my arm. I love the idea.
Oh, I remember celluloid. The smell of the roll, like when you opened it. After, it was. I remember changing the. I remember changing the. In the bag and going to the lab and dropping it off. But very much like, like video stores. I have a nostalgic relationship with video stores. I wouldn't go back. Like if there was a video store down the street, I'm not going to go rent my movies there because it doesn't make sense. I have a nostalgic feeling for what I felt when I was at that point, and I worked at a video store, and I love that whole. But that was that time, and same thing goes for this.
I get that for sure. I worked at a video store, and I love that time, and it's a bygone era, and I get that. But I'm hearing, and at least it's in the headlines and it's in the media right now, is. Who needs movie theaters? You're not going to see packed. You're never going to see a sold out movie theater again. Movie theaters are a thing of the past, and I just totally disagree with that. I think that there is a portion of us that still appreciate the movie theater and always will. And it's not an old thing. It's a right thing, because if there is no movie theater experience, like I was so happy that Groupers got a theatrical release. I mean, that was a dream come. Getting a distribution deal was great, but getting that theatrical release, that made it, in my mind, like I actually made a real movie that had a theatrical release. You get that. But if you don't have that option, then it's just TV. I mean, and Tarantino said it a few years ago. That's why he's been threatening to retire for all these years, is because he's like, we're not making movies anymore. We're just making, long TV shows, which essentially, I mean, there's something to be said about that. So
no, I agree with him. I agree with you. I don't think, I look, if you don't believe that movie theaters are going to be packed again, wait till the next Avengers shows up. Yeah. Wait till the next.
They piss off AMC, right?
Yeah. Even look, AMC could be pissed off as much as they want. They need the movies. They need Avengers. They need Disney. They need Disney product. They need Warner Brother product. They need, the next Harry Potter or whatever. They're going to, people will show up. Will it be as big of a pie as it used to be? No, I think there'll be different. Is the window going to be different? Yes. Will there be a 30-day window as opposed to this 90-day window that movie theaters have been trying to go for forever? I think it's going to that window's going to change, and they're going to have to renegotiate. If not, they're just going to die. They're just not going to make it, because theaters need Hollywood. Hollywood doesn't need theaters at this point.
Yeah, I think that the worldwide, we'll see. I mean, right now we're all going off of what Trolls 2 did. You know what I mean? Like,
well, no, and that's a very unique. That's the other thing I said to I was talking to somebody else earlier today. I said, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. Look, Trolls 2 is a very unique film in the sense that it's a low-hanging fruit, meaning it was an equivalent low-budget movie. $90 million for an animated film is fairly affordable, for them. And it's like, well, we could either shelve it or we could put it out there. And it's a kids movie, and it's in the middle of a pandemic, and parents are going crazy. It checked off a lot of boxes, and that's why it did as well as it did. But what will happen when Bond shows up? Like, I think if this thing does keep going and nobody goes, if the theaters don't open up until November, and you put Bond on I call it premium TVOD. I'm gonna pay $20 to see it, and I'm sure a lot of people will. So it hasn't really been tested yet. Let's throw a real tentpole up there. Let's see what happens. But like I said earlier, like Tyson fights back in the day were making $500-600 million in one night.
That was a party thing too. That was an event. They'd have an event at your house and you'd host it, right?
Right. So why wouldn't this be? I think that's where this premium TVOD could go for these giant event movies. But and then interesting. You got
to have to tap into the FOMO too, because like I said, there's so much entertainment. You got to have it so that the kids don't want to go to school on Monday unless they've seen it, because they don't want to be left out of the conversation. And
there's very few of those movies.
What kind of products are you making when that's what the main motivating factor is, to create FOMO? And I guess they're already doing that.
Yeah, I was about to say, have you not been paying attention to Hollywood over the last decade? That's what they do.
Last 100 years, I guess. Yeah.
That's what they do, man. Well, we went a little bit off target here, but you said you got a distributor with your film. Who's if you don't mind me asking, what's your relationship with the distributor? Are you making any money with them?
I don't know, because I'm still waiting for Amazon and iTunes and all of those to, show their reports. We find out for the movie that got released in November, came out in theaters, I think October, and then it went to TVOD, and then it's on AVOD as well. I'll let you know where it is, all the different places. But that was November. We don't find out what it did, how it's done business, until July, from what I understand. Like sometime in July, we'll figure that out. But I landed with Terror Films, who was the only. I got 5 offers from 5 different distributors, and I can tell you the first offer I got, I would have jumped at had I not known what I was doing a little bit, had I not listened to people like you. And
what was that deal? What was that deal, by the way?
It was 30-70 split to me, and it was a very large distributor who has a whole bunch of movies, and I didn't get very far down the path. Went back and forth with them a little bit, and then another distributor that I was very familiar with came in, and they wanted it. So I'm thinking, great, 2 big names that I could say, hey, my movie's with so and so, and then the third guy, no, actually he was the 4th guy that came in. Was Terror Films. I also had a deal with I don't want to say any of the names.
Sure, you don't have to say the names. But so let me ask you a question. With these other deals that you turned down, was there minimum? There was no minimum guarantee, so you weren't getting paid any money up front.
No MGs, not with this tiny little.
No, but was there? What was was there a marketing cap, and also what was the terms length of the agreements? Just curious.
I'd have to pull it up, Alex, and also I can tell you that I had Glenn. With Circus Road Films.
Glenn, friend of the show, Glenn Reynolds.
Great guy. And what's funny is I got him out of AFM, kind of. I met him outside of AFM. We set up a meeting and met down the street at AFM because he didn't even go to AFM that year. And I was all willing to do the deal with him, and he was gonna, he was gonna be my rep. And I'm listening to you talk to Linda with Indie Rights.
Yeah.
And you're doing an interview with her, right? And you guys are talking about reps and producers reps and how and sellers reps and how they just rip people off left and right. And if anyone asks for money up front, run. They're bad people. They're just there to take your money. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not signing with this Glenn guy. I'll never forget. I was showing my movie in Orange County later that night, and I was getting ready to show my movie because I four-walled it first before I got the distribution deal. And I'm in my hotel at the Hyatt out in Orange County, just listening to you guys talk. And I'm like, I'm breaking off this deal with Glenn. And then she says, or you say, unless it's somebody like Glenn. And I'm like, oh, I'm back in.
Well, there's very few.
Great.
Glenn's great, and there's very few producers reps who actually do what they say they're going to do, who are fair, who care. I can count them on one hand. So they're very few.
Fantastic. And as a first timer, I can say if you're lucky enough to have somebody like Glenn who likes your film and they want to get it out there for you, they want to work with you. He was great because I never felt like any offer he brought me was going to be taken full advantage or I was going to get screwed. And he'd go through with a long form and he'd cross things and highlight things that were an issue. Ultimately, though, what kind of made sense was that when Terror Films came, Joe Dane with Terror Films, I know you've had him on since I signed with. I took his call just to be courteous, because I'm like, who am I? I had no interest. I saw his 50-50 split. I never heard of them. They're a horror film distributor. I'm like, not a right fit, but I'll take his 15-minute phone call because that'd be rude. And who the hell am I? I'm a first-time filmmaker. I should be lucky that anybody wants to even look at my film, right? Talk to Joe. 2 hours goes by. I'm talking to Joe, and I just love everything he's saying. And because of the things that I heard from you and other horror stories that I had read about, first-time filmmakers never seen a dime and never having any idea what their film is doing. Joe's business model is built in that you are going to see at least something because you get 50%. There are no caps. All the marketing's on him. Any business the movie does, I see 50% of it automatically. There's no recoupables for him. It's just straight up. So if the movie does
your partners, basically.
Exactly. So if it does 2 rentals at $5 a pop, Amazon's going to take their 50, and then I'm going to split the $5 with Joe, and I'm going to get a list $2.50 because I know people rented the movie. So that's nice to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Joe's. I've had Joe on the show, and if you're a member of the Protect Yourself from Predatory Film Distributors and Aggregator Facebook group, Joe is a very vocal voice in that group. Yes. And has been since the beginning with Distributor and that whole debacle, which is how we met originally. But yeah, man, look, it's not perfect. His model is not perfect for everybody, but it is for some people. And there, like I said, there's a handful of people that I can count on one hand as far as distributors and producers, reps, sales agents, and things like that I would trust and go, you know what? These are the guys. There's very, very few. So just understand the majority of who you deal with is going to be. It's going to be predatory. I was listening. I just had a conversation, had a consult with a filmmaker. I was coaching him through a distribution deal, and they had a $1 million plus minimum guarantee offer on the table. Wait a minute. And the movie was made for about $700,000-800,000. Okay. It was it was 2 deals, $2 million plus deals on the table. Both very well-known companies. If I said their names, you know who they were. And it was an MG, $1 million MG. That's how good his film was. He turned them both down. And do you know why he turned them both down? Because by the time, it was so much Mickey Mouse BS on when he got paid and how the payment, it was just so, and the deliverables list that he had to set up. And he's like, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm never going to see this. Even though they say I'm going to get an MG, it's going to take 6 months to a year before I even get the
way they do business.
Right. And it was just like, but that's standard practice. That is what business as usual is in the entertainment industry. So I think the distribution space in general has had such a long run of, hey, it's us or nothing kind of attitude that they just we're just going to abuse you. And if you don't like it, there's another 5,000 movies sitting right behind you that are willing to do it. So we don't really care if you take it or not. And that's the world we live in. So that's why I've been, that's been preaching the filmtrepreneurial method and figuring out other ways for filmmakers to make money and to sustain themselves as a career before they can get, unless they want to eventually get hired on to work for hire at a big studio or work on TV or do something else like that. But it's brutal out there. It is so brutal. So anytime I talk to a filmmaker and they have a deal, I'm like, give me the details. I want details. Is off the record, tell me how much you make, who you make, because I'd like to hear all this. That's why I used to love going to AFM. I'm not going this year probably, but I used to go. I loved going to AFM because I would get stopped every 5 feet. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. By somebody or a filmmaker who was like, hey, here's my deal. And they would tell me their deals. Yeah. So I would really get a feeling for some of the deals I heard, 25-year deals, 25-year deals. Yeah, that's another,
you know what? One of them was a 25-year deal. One of the offers that I got was 25. With Joe, it's a 5-year deal, which was by far the lowest. It's one of the lowest. I got 15, 20, and 25-year deals offered to me, except for indie rights, which was a whole different ballgame. But that's almost like self-distribution.
Very close, yeah. And I'm with indie. I'm with indie rights and Linda and Michael, and they're great. They're great. And they I got my first check.
Oh, cool! Already? Wait, you're after me though.
No, but I got my first check from This Is Meg.
Oh, okay.
So
that's a while ago.
Yeah. So they just picked that up, and that got released first before On the Corner of Ego did. And it's not a lot, but I got something.
You got something, yeah. Because I heard you talking with the original guy, the distributor guy, years ago, and he was talking about why he created distributors because he had produced 10 movies and he never saw a dime for any of them, and that was his bottom, I guess. Like that was his catalyst to actually go out and create a new model, a way for filmmakers to not have to deal with that. And it's kind of ironic now that here we sit with the first time I was supposed to do your show. That was the day that Distributor blew up, and then the second time we rescheduled. That was the day that Tom Hanks got coronavirus. So I'm glad that here we are finally recording. No pandemics and no major scandals in Hollywood.
No, it's like when we called last time. I'm like, dude, we can record this, but man, my mind's not in it. The world is coming to an end right now. We don't know what's going on. Probably not the best time to do this interview. And
it was literally the day that they canceled NBA or suspended NBA.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the day that it became real, right?
Right.
Before I forget, Alex, let me give a little piece of advice too, because I know you have a lot of people who are like me right now, or like the way I was, and just and I don't want to spare people from 20 years of thinking that they're going to be discovered or thinking that it's going to happen just because I got stories to tell. I'm a smart guy. I'm going to change the world. Because that doesn't work. And part of the reason why I was so gun shy is because I got an appreciation for Stanley Kubrick, once again, to go back to him, at a young age. An unhealthy obsession with his movies, his method, reading books on him, obsessing about Stanley Kubrick. And then you get in your head and there's no way you're going to make anything that looks like Stanley Kubrick. So I was exceptionally intimidated. Now, a lot of the filmmakers that I love, they grew up watching Roger Corman movies or, John Carpenter movies, attainable movies that you and your friends could go make in the backyard with some fun effects. I wish that I had gone down that path. I would have made my first movie probably 10 years earlier,
That's the same thing for me. I didn't make my first feature, even though I had the skill set probably a decade earlier, but I didn't do it purely because I was up my own ass. I just I need my first movie's got to be Reservoir Dogs. It's got to be mariachi. It's got to be something that comes out and explodes. And I put so much pressure on it that it was just no way it could ever live up to it. So it was just excuses because I was scared. And then finally, it was just the bottom line. It was just excuses for, I need $5 million. I need $5 million. I can't work without $5 million. I have to have that. And that kind of stuff. It's
It's childish. It really is childish.
Yeah. And I went to the complete opposite end. I'm like, you know what? $5,000. Screw it. Boom.
Yeah. And I made this for this paltry amount of money. And I'm in awe of what you did with the amount of money you had. I mean, that's way more impressive than if you made, some shoot 'em up $5 million movie, whatever. I've seen that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is, man, I know a lot of people in the industry who are working directors, and they're they're employees, and they're very well paid employees, but they're employees. So when the boss doesn't have work for you, you're done, and that's a very weird place to be. And I've been fired from both jobs I've ever had in this industry as a staffer. Very proud of my firings. And I've always been self-employed, running my own company, because I always wanted my fate to be in my own hands in one way, shape, or form. Yeah. And that's the whole method of the filmtrepreneur, is to control as much of the revenue, control the system as much as humanly possible. Because I feel it's just insane to spend $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 and just magically trust somebody here. I expect the check in 6 months. That is such a scary thing. That's not a good business sense. It's not a good business in general. So that's what I've been trying to preach for as long as possible.
And nobody's ever said that like independent film is a smart decision, or it's a business that kind of came out of necessity, because the studios, they were in control of everything, and there was a bunch of people like you and I and other filmmakers going, hey, I got something to say. I'd like to make one of those pictures, right? So we had to kind of do it on our own over here, and then here come the sharks, like, oh, you want to do it on your own? Okay, well, sign right here, we'll help you. It makes perfect sense.
It'll be fine. I promise you, everything will be fine. Now, you also went down the festival circuit with this film a little bit. Is there anything you've done differently?
Anything that I would have done differently? Yes, I would have cut my movie so that it was less than 90 minutes. I think that's another very important thing if you're a first-time filmmaker and you're trying to get on the festival circuit. They love the shorter movies. They love movies that are like 75, 88 minutes. My movie's a little fat for an independent movie. It's 109 minutes, hour and 49 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I think that was probably a problem. We ended up premiering at CineQuest, which was really, really good.
So did I.
Top 10 festival, right, in the U.S. So I was happy with where we premiered, and thank God we both got our movies in before all this. I feel so bad for people who went through what you go through. And then you get in, your dreams are coming true, and then this happens. Like, I can't believe, because usually that happens to me, Alex. I can't believe that I dodged this bullet somehow. But yeah, so I went down the festival circuit, and that's fun. I mean, you really got to, if you've not done this before, know that you have to be prepared to just be rejected all the time, and you never know when it's going to happen. Like, and it hurts as much as being dumped by a girlfriend. If you have your dream of getting into Sundance or South by, and you never know where you're going to be when that email comes in. So you'll be sitting. In my case, a lot of time I'd be out to eat with my wife and my 1-year-old son at the time, having a great time, and then I'd get a little email notification. I'd look, oh, my heart was.
We regret to inform you. We regret to inform you. It's not you. It's not you. It's us.
Yeah, it's just there are so many good ones this year. Yeah, it's the same form letter, and then I get really angry. I think Slam Dances had like a bunch of typos, which I was furious. Like, you couldn't even bother to reread your rejection letter. There's a great documentary called Official Rejection, which I highly recommend people watch before actually going down that road. Because if you're sensitive, I'm a sensitive little guy. I really am. I hate rejection more than most people probably do, and it would just ruin your day, like for the rest of your day, and you never know when it's. And then I was getting rejection letters from festivals I had forgotten that I had even submitted to, right?
Which is like, and it's then, like
Houston. It's like the International Film Festival. They sent me a letter to my box. I went out to my mailbox, and there was a letter in there from the Houston. I'm thinking, oh my God, they sent a letter. This is awesome. We regret to inform you. And then a week later, they sent another one with the same exact letter. They doubled me up for whatever. So I got 2 rejections from those guys. But you just have to be prepared for lots of no's, just nonstop. Nope, we are not interested.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. Where do you think the festivals are going to go now, man? Because they are not. People are. If you think it's rough getting to go see the Avengers in the theater, these smaller festivals, man, I don't think they're going to be able to survive moving forward, especially this year.
We need a nice
cleansing,
don't we? Yeah, I mean, there's more festivals than there are new movies. There really are, right?
Yeah, no, there is. I think there might be a gluttony of festivals, but in general, though, the importance of these bigger festivals I mean, before it was everything, you know, and if you got into Sundance or Slam Dance, it really did mean a whole lot. And don't get me wrong, it still does, but it doesn't guarantee anything at all. So now all of a sudden we're in a world where South by got canceled and Tribeca will be canceled and Cannes will be canceled. And I promise you Sundance will probably be canceled next year as well. It probably won't go on because I don't think we're going to be out of this by January. Not to the point where they'll
come up with some way that
digitally. There has to be something. It's
all going to be digital screenings and that kind of thing, and it's still going to have the austere.
But that's only to those top 10 fests. Like, how about the rest of the thousands that don't have that kind of cachet and don't have that kind of email list or following? You know, people will log into Sundance. Will they log into, you know, a smaller festival, you know, regional? Like I always said the Moose Jaw International Film Festival, which doesn't exist. You know, so will they sign up for the Moose Jaw Film Festival somewhere in Ottawa? We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. You know, like I'm not sure if they will.
Are you sure it doesn't exist?
I hope not.
Does.
I hope it doesn't.
Does.
If it does, I apologize.
I was appalled to see it. I think there was 2,500 to 3,500 film festivals around the world.
No, it's about 5,000 to 6,000. It's about 5,000 to 6,000 film festivals around the world.
Maybe it's gone up that much since I was in the festival circuit 2 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, to the numbers that I've seen, it's around 5,000 to 6,000 worldwide, including online festivals and all these other kind of things as well.
I honestly, as much as I love movies, and I think that I've made that pretty clear with you in the audience, just talking to you about my old man ways, theater or die, which I truly believe in. I've never seen the allure of festivals. Honestly, I don't really understand why people like festivals. I get how they help filmmakers, and as a filmmaker, I understand their value. But essentially, they're like screening companies, right? Like they just screen a bunch of crap to try and elevate the best ones, so that nobody. Who else are you gonna? They're like a strainer almost.
It's if I may steal a quote from Jonathan Wolfe, the director of AFM. It's a cultural event. It is a way for film lovers to get together and see art. It's all it is. It's never was meant to be business. It turned into that, especially at these bigger festivals. But it also makes no sense because you're giving over your property, you're giving over your product. They're selling tickets to show your movie, and they keep 100% of the money. It's like college. It's like college athletes. Like it's
amateurism.
Exactly. So if it wasn't for the filmmakers in the film, Sundance can't make any money at a festival. So it's a weird, and the only thing you trade off for that is awards, maybe sometimes cash rewards, maybe some attention, maybe something that can lead to distribution or something that can, help you monetarily later or get an agent.
Right, gives you essentially like a little trophy to walk around and be like, look, I got the little trophy, and they said that my movie's better than 95% of the movies that they got slung their way. And it's a cog in the wheel. I think that we could survive without festivals. From what I've seen of festivals in my 20 years of looking at festivals, I've been to like 3. I went to TIFF a few years ago. Yeah. And I don't like watching 4 or 5 movies in one day. I don't think you're being fair to the movies when you watch 4 or 5 movies in one day. I'm not a big fan of the festivals. I understand their purpose, but I think that we'd be okay with maybe 20 festivals total. Get rid of.
It's going to be interesting how this all shakes out, man. It's going to be a very interesting time. And let me ask you one last question. What is the biggest lesson you learned from this entire process of making that your first feature?
The business side is actually fun. Mm-hmm. I was, I already talked about it a little bit with you, but I guess the punk rock side of me growing up being, anti-establishment, I'm like, F that, I'm not going to learn anything about the business side of I actually really like the business side of things. And there is a lot of ways to continue with the FU and FU to establishment. And you can actually do so more effectively if you understand the business side of things. So I wish that I had not been so essentially afraid of the business side of things for as long as I was.
Now, what advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business? Not specifically today, but in this general time.
Yeah. Pandemic notwithstanding. Just start shooting. And now you don't have an excuse. I had an excuse because when I first started wanting to make movies, the digital was awful. It looked like video. It looked terrible. Mm-hmm. And my excuse was I can't afford film, which I couldn't. Now you can do it on your iPhone. And if you don't believe me, watch Tangerines. It's fantastic. Tangerine or Tangerines? I've seen
Tangerine.
both. Tangerines is the foreign film about the two opposing war combatants that get harmed on the Tangerine farmer's property, and then he mends them both back to health.
Wow.
They get better in his house, and then they start fighting in his house. It was really good, Tangerines. But Tangerine is what I'm talking about with Sean Baker. Just get your friends together, have fun with it, and see if it's for you. A lot of people, I think they want to direct, and then when they give it a shot, they're awful at it, or it's too scary or too intimidating, or they just can't keep their mind straight. So figure out if it's for you. Earlier the better.
What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Oh man, it seems like they're all the same answer, right? Not being afraid of the business side of things.
Okay.
Really, pure artists, they die poor, broken, and lonely and alone. Yeah.
And they cut their ear off.
Yeah. And then boring movies are made about them 100 years later.
What are three of your favorite films of all time?
Oh, that's easy because I do that for my main mode of making money is talking movies and lists and stuff. So Clockwork Orange, number one.
Yes.
I have a top five.
Sure, go to top five.
Top five. Harold and Maude, Midnight Cowboy, Goodfellas, and Platoon. Platoon is the first movie that I saw, upwards of over a dozen times in the theater, and that was the first time that I really connected with a movie to extremes.
All right, so then I'll give you top three Kubrick films of all time, since you're such a Kubrick buff like I am.
You son of a bitch. That also changes month to month. But it's Clockwork Orange is number one, and then I'm probably going 2001, depending on my mood, and then The Killing. The Killing.
Nice.
God, I love The Killing.
The Killing is amazing.
Back to my movie, Groupers. It's kind of it was definitely inspired as far as story structure with The Killing, where you're seeing different things happen in different times, and everyone's like, "Oh, Pulp Fiction." It seems like Pulp Fiction, like Tarantino. I'm like, I stole from the same guy that Tarantino was stealing from. That's what you're seeing.
Well, I will have to say, inspired by, sir. What I will say, my favorite Kubrick. People are always shocked by this, but it's Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes. Yeah, I don't know. That's so funny. I was first in line. Okay, I'll be honest. Second in line at the Chinese theater opening day to see Eyes Wide Shut. I saw it. I had no idea if I was enjoying myself or if I liked it. I've seen it 3 or 4 times since. I still don't know if I even like it. I dislike it.
So the thing with Eyes Wide Shut, because now everyone who's listened to me knows that I'm a huge Kubrick fan, and I've gone down that well too deep. Sometimes I'm lost in there. But the reason why I love Eyes Wide Shut is I did the exact same thing in 1999. I was first to go see it. I went to go see it. I walk out, and my friends and I are like, "Did you like it?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I'll probably understand it in 10 years." Because that's what happens with all of his films. Like when you see them, you're like, well, I don't get it. And then like 10 years later, like, oh my God, this is an amazing film. And that's what happened with Eyes Wide Shut. 10 years later, I saw it. I was like, this is really good. And then I saw it after I got married. And that's a whole other level to it. Oh. Not that I'm in a sex cult thing, but I get,
right.
I understand what he was trying to say about love and about relationships and about these two fighting forces between a husband and wife. I get all of it. And even then I'm still probably missing a whole bunch of it. There's something there's still something extremely dreamlike. Every time I watch the movie, I feel like I'm in a dream, and he does that purposefully. He shot it purposefully to make you feel like it's a dream. There's like, if you analyze the street, like where Tom Cruise is walking, it doesn't make sense. Like it's New York, but it really isn't New York because it was shot in London. So like, know that it's not New York, and it's not really supposed to. There's no street ever in New York that looked like that. So there's that whole vibe and stuff. So it's such a unique film inside of his filmography. But they're all unique. I mean, I watched Clockwork Orange like a year ago, and I'm like, how did this get made back then? Like how?
Back then, yeah.
Like it couldn't get made now. There's no possible way that movie can be made now in the studio system. But back then, like in the first 25 minutes, the stuff that he got away with was
he had left,
mind blowing.
he had already left the studio system, right? Like because of his experience with Spartacus. Like he's like, I'm never going to work for you guys again. I'm going off and doing my own thing, and I'm bailing. I'm actually going to a different country. But he was still working in the studio system. These were all Warner Brother films. And they're all Warner Brother films, but he was like,
he's outside
with an open checkbook. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, it's insane.
But like Lolita was even more punk rock at the time. I mean, making Lolita was just like he was a button pusher, and I don't think he gets credit for being the button pusher that he was, and that's what he was. I mean, he was a genius filmmaker. But the subjects that he tackled, the fact that he gets you to root for a rapist is just unbelievable, right? How is that possible?
I'm watching it and I'm like, it was made in the 70s, and you watch the first 30 minutes of Clockwork Orange and you're like, that's extreme for today. Like if you put that on the screen today, people will be like, what? Like, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Here's the fun fact, Alex. A Clockwork Orange and Harold and Maude came out the same weekend. Can you imagine? Two of the greatest films ever made, says me, came out the same weekend, and they're so different, but they're both of their time for sure. Have you ever seen Room 237? Please tell me you've seen that.
Of course, I've seen Room 237. Yeah, I've seen any documentary on Kubrick. I've probably watched. Yeah. I've seen all the British ones. I've seen Boxes. I've seen all of it. I mean, I'm such a Kubrick fanatic. It's not even funny. I
hate Matthew Modine because he speaks ill of Stanley Kubrick. So I dislike Matthew Modine. I'm crazy with it. I get a little crazy with it.
Yeah, I know. I get you. Now, where can people find you and what your shows and also the movie?
My website, which I'm in the middle of updating right now, it's very, very like early 2010s, but that's andersoncowan.com, and the movie is available on Tubi and Amazon. It's on Tubi for AVOD, and on Amazon and iTunes. It's called Groupers, and it's a movie that I made with the idea of kind of mixing things up, having a hook, and having something to say too, and I want it to be memorable, and I'm hoping that anyone who sees this movie will want to see what else I can do, what I can make next. So that's the idea of Groupers, and it's the kind of movie where you see it and you immediately want to start talking about what you just saw and what it really meant or what you were trying to figure out, or if it's this kind of movie you need to talk to people about after you see it. That's what I set out to do.
Very cool, man.
Groupersthemovie.com is a good place to go.
Anderson, man, thank you for talking. I know we could talk for at least another 3 or 4 hours, but I appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on and sharing your experience in this weird and wacky world that we call the film industry, man. So thanks again, brother.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Good to see you.
I want to thank Anderson for coming on the show and being so raw about his experiences and misadventures in the film business. Thank you so much, Anderson. If you want to get links to anything we spoke about in this episode, including how to watch his film Groupers, head over to the show notes at indiefilmhustle.com/409. And if you haven't already, please head over to filmmakingpodcast.com and leave a good review for the show. It does truly help us out a lot and helps get this information to more and more filmmakers around the world. Thank you again for listening, guys. As always, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.